Yes. So good morning, everybody. In our church newsletter this month, I share one of my favorite quotes from Lincoln that he said at his first inaugural address on the eve of the Civil War. And you'll have to look at the newsletter to find the whole quote, but there's two phrases he uses in that are quite powerful to me. The first is in appealing to the nation, all sides in the conflict, is he asked us to appeal to the mystic chords of memory. Mystic chords of memory. In other words, that we can all appeal within ourselves to that aspect of ourselves that knows that in truth we have one spiritual father, one spiritual mother, one spiritual source that we all come from. The other phrase is he asks us to appeal to the angels of our better nature. Isn't that a nice, sweet way of saying, you know better? The angels of our better nature. And, of course, his appeals in many ways didn't work at the time. But I think part of that is we didn't realize what Anne-Marie said in her prayer, that people can ask us to appeal to our oneness collectively, but it really is up to us individually to know our unity and to practice it in our lives. It begs the question to me of how many of us know that we're children of God. And you can be an atheist here, it doesn't matter, so you can choose whether or not to raise your hand, but how many of you here know that you're a child of God? That you are, to put it another way, born of the sacred. That you are connected and brought forth from something that knows what love is, what depth is, what connection is, and that we're all of us from that same source. That being said, I wonder how many of us live like we're children of God? How many of us live? Oh my gosh. It's not an easy task, I guess, to live like we're a child of God, to live like you are an expression of the sacred, to live like not only you know what unconditional love is, but that you are what unconditional love is, to live like you are divine. Not some egotistical diva kind of way, but that you know, because you know it about everybody else too, that you are an expression of what is holy and meaningful and sacred in this world. And my message in short today is to act like that. Because we don't have a whole lot of time for fooling around with anything else, especially when we may find divisions in our personal life, in our country, or in our world. We are children of God, and we should act like it. Our theme for our talks this year has been practical faith. And my intention, I'm sure sometimes I do a better job than other times, is to discuss what we might call some deep or complicated spiritual ideas and to apply them practically to our lives. That's kind of been the goal in our talks. And to me it reflects Ernest Holmes, who founded our tradition. He didn't see himself as a prophet, he was just a mystic himself, and he liked pulling together what he thought was the best wisdom that was out there at the time. And our job in our church now is to keep finding that wisdom wherever we can get it so we can live better lives. But he said that the goal of our work was the practical application of the truth. That the goal of the science of mind, of spiritual living, is to apply the truth practically. And that's kind of profound to me for a couple different reasons. First is, it says that we believe in such thing as the capital T truth. We believe in the power of love, and the power of good, and the power of the divine, and the power of the sacred, and that it overcomes anything else that isn't it. But secondly, perhaps more profoundly, is just because the truth is, doesn't mean it's apparent. I believe in love, I believe in great truth, I believe in great good, but that doesn't mean I see it all the time around me. And so what that says is that so much of our work in the science of mind and spirit is about bringing the truth to our lives. And although it may always be in spirit, it may always be in possibility, It will never be in actuality in our experience unless we embody and practice it within our own consciousness, with the people we love, and within our communities, within all that we do. And it's not always easy. See, for Ernest Holmes, when he talks about faith, when he talks about love, when he talks about oneness, he doesn't just mean them as pretty ideas, warm and fuzzy ideas. We are not the warm and fuzzy Center for Spiritual Living, as warm and fuzzy as that sounds. He doesn't mean to refer to them just as ideas, but as principles. They're principles. And what is a principle? In some ways we don't know because they're invisible. They're intangible. The only reason we know what a principle is how it works. So we know that there are principles of physics because our feet are on the ground. Or we know that there are principles of electricity because if we misuse them, we get shocked. Or if we use them correctly, we can turn the light on. Well, for Holmes, it's like that with love and faith and oneness. They're principles, and if we use them mindfully and with awareness, they exceed and expand in our lives. Holmes would argue that for a lot of people, the scientific material principles seem to be easy to understand, as complicated as they are, but it's these metaphysical ones that we really struggle with. Because that's the thing about principles too, is they don't care who's using them. They're going to work for everybody in the same way, no matter how wonderful or how big of a stinker you are. It's up to us to use them, and we're all going to get those results. And for me, I know where I practice faith in my life, I've had great success. I've had great opportunities come about for me, great relationships, great epiphanies. And yet I know where I have misused the principle of faith in my life. Holmes calls the misuse of the principle of faith fear. I know that I have created scenarios where I didn't step into my power and didn't speak from my true voice, where I said no or passed up on opportunities that would have been for my betterment and those around me, where I've shrunk down and lived not in accordance with the truth of who I am. So I've used the principle of faith for my betterment and for my absence. Same with love, where I've used the principle of love in my life. I've been able to create great relationships, have great experiences, and get beyond the notion of being the lowercase s self, just self-encased and feeling restricted from the rest of the world, to see myself as a part of a cause greater than I am. For me, the misuse of the principle of love, for me, in my own life, has been kind of a mass egotism, where everything is about what others might be able to do for me, trying to sometimes manipulate my life. Anyone else ever been there? I feel like I'm in a therapy session. Where I have utilized the principle of oneness in my life, I have felt at one in the human family. I've been able to see everyone as my brother and my sister. And more importantly, I've been able to have a certain amount of trust of life. I felt more safe in my own skin, and I felt that the world isn't a bad place to worry that it's going to get me, but that it's friendly, that it's a good place to be and live my life. But where I've misused the principle of oneness, I've found myself feeling that I'm separated from everything around me. I've created divisions with other people in my life for 100 different stereotypes and ideas and reasons, none of them making any sense whatsoever, but somehow I convince myself that they're true and real. I've gone into so many excuses to make me not a part of this thing called life. See, even this principle of oneness, this principle of unity is so powerful because if you use it properly in your life, you can feel such a sense of that oneness and trust in your life that no matter what happens, good or bad, you can have a sense of the wholeness of who you are and a feeling of hope and faith in the world around you. It's exceptional to be able to practice oneness and experience it in your life. But it's not easy. And when we look at really practicing something like oneness, which is what I want to talk with you about this morning, it's one thing to say and approach oneness as a nice idea. Unity, great idea. I love it. We're all children of God. It all sounds wonderful. It's harder when you apply it to your life. It's hard to practice oneness. It's hard to say that we're all one and then apply that to politics. And then apply that to conflicts that you're having at work. Or to apply it to a long line at a grocery store that you can't get through. I especially have a tough time sometimes with the checkers at Trader Joe's who always appear to be stoned. So they just grab just the one that I get. They're always this is so good. Oh, have you tried these before? And I'll say, corn chips? Yeah, oh yeah. So, what I want to talk with you about today is just 3 ways to practice oneness in your life. Because when we look at oneness as an idea, it's just that. It's a theory. But if you want to practice oneness becomes a choice. Oneness is a choice. And the first thing that we have to be able to do if we want to practice oneness in our life is you have to bless everybody. Bless everybody. Easier said than done, right? You have to bless everybody. Sometimes even in this movement, I can see people and they get into prayer. They're really inspired. I just know that God is out there and I know that I am one with God, and now I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show those sons of bitches. We get inspired, we feel the Spirit, and then we act like it's a war cry. We go into conflict with our lives. But it's so important to remember that if we truly want to know the truth about ourselves, we have to be willing to know it about everybody else too. And you will never truly know the truth about yourself unless you're willing to see and embrace it about everybody else. That's part of the power of oneness, is to realize there is enough good for everybody. No one out there can ever take your good from you, because that good is the very truth of who you are. When you set them free to find it for themselves, you can truly embrace it for yourself too. But we can't do this. I know that we are all one except Darlene. Except my boss over here. We have to bless everyone. Ernest Holmes once put it in this way. He said that if you want to stay out of hell, nobody can ever be in it. If you want to stay out of hell, nobody can ever be in it. And for me, it goes the other way too. If you want to live in heaven, then everybody else has to be welcomed in too. Does that mean people don't do wrong? No. Does it mean you don't need to have healthy boundaries with people? No. It just means bless everyone. When you're in that long line at Walmart, don't just want to get home for yourself. Want everyone else to get home too. Say a blessing for that checker. God bless them for having a good slow day and enjoying whatever they enjoyed before they got to work that day. Whatever it was, just bless them. But bless yourself too. So that's the idea there. Bless everyone. I sometimes fall into that chorus of people who sometimes criticize, in particular, fundamentalists or evangelical Christians for not really practicing what Jesus teaches all the time. Anyone here ever do that? I get mad at them. I call them Bible worshipers. You're more interested in finding the quotes that you want to say to support your judgments, and you don't focus on the teachings of this guy who's saying, love everybody, no matter what their faith is. Be inclusive of everybody. And as much as I join in that chorus, though, I have to admit, practicing that stuff is hard. What made Jesus holy to me isn't the idea of being born a virgin. It's loving everybody in an incredible way. This turn the other cheek stuff is not easy. This loving everybody no matter what stuff isn't easy. So when I'm telling you these things, my answer too is also to good luck, because it's not an easy thing to do. But if you want to practice oneness and having a deep experience of unity in your life, this is what you have to do. The second thing is that we have to get out of blame. And so the second thing is no blame. If you want to practice oneness in your life, stop blaming situations, circumstances, and other people. Because what I've learned in my life is that as long as I'm blaming something or someone, I'm giving up my power to choose and my power to change. It doesn't matter if I'm blaming a political system, or I'm blaming a circumstance, or I'm blaming someone I love, whatever it is, because they want to go eat somewhere else for dinner than I do. I'm giving my power to be mindful about how I feel, about what I want to bring to life, and I'm causing myself to be not one, separating myself from them, and then choosing to be a victim of whatever their whims are. I'm not saying there isn't plenty of blame to go around in this world. There is. But if we want to practice oneness, we have to get out of blame. Chuang-Tzu, an ancient Chinese philosopher, he invites us to imagine that we're on a boat crossing a lake. And there's another boat with a man in it, and it runs into us. He says, "What do you do?" And he guesses that what you probably do is you yell at that man. "Why are you in my way? Why did you do that?" And then Chuang-Tzu invites us to consider, he says, "Now consider that you are crossing the lake on your boat, and another boat comes, but this time it's empty, and it hits you. Do you yell at it? Do you scream at that boat?" I was actually in a class with Miss April, and she said, "I'm going to find out who owns that damn boat, and I'm going to put that into my mind." And although she's right, that's not the Chuang-Tzu's point. His point is that we're all crossing the lakes of our lives, that we're all trying to get somewhere. So even if something or someone else bumps into you, don't blame them. Don't let them steer you away from the path in which you're headed. And how many of us have allowed a person or a circumstance that should never be in the business of defining who we are in any practical way define us for a day, for an hour, for a month, or even sometimes decades? We can sometimes live down to the direction we want our lives to go because so-and-so bumped into us, or got into our way, or upset us. Living as the children of God that we are means no longer living down to someone else's judgment or just whatever their dizzy path on the way to where they're going may be. So if we want to live as one, we have to get out of blame. We see this in our politics today, of course, too. I love politicians. I know people put them down, but what bugs me about most of them is they're always in the business of blame. It's the government's fault. It's the liberals' fault. It's the Republicans' fault. It's the 1%'s fault. It's the other 99%'s fault. But where's the responsibility, right? And that's where we have an opportunity in our own life, because when we're in a place of blame, we give up our power to take responsibility, to respond to anything we don't like from a sense of positivity, that we can accomplish great things by acknowledging problems. Yes, we shouldn't be in denial about them, but we can also stand up for what we believe in and be a part of being the 100% that we want to steer us in our churches and in our communities and, of course, in our country as well. The last aspect of practical unity that I want to touch upon is that if you want to practice oneness, you have to be one too. That if you want to practice oneness, you have to be one too. And this goes back to what I was talking about of knowing you're a child of God and acting like it. I love something that Sherry Hubert once said. She said, if someone else spoke to you the way that you constantly speak to yourself, you would have stopped talking to yourself a long time ago, right? We sometimes spend so much time in self-beratement and judgment that we hold ourselves from living in that higher and more profound truth of who we are. Again, it's not always easy, but that option is always available to us. A lot of us in our lives, we've been hurt. And probably we're going to get hurt again. Someone's going to say something that offends us. Someone's going to do something that challenges our sense of dignity. Someone's going to do something that causes us to not act like who we want to be. But we're going to be a choice in that moment to recognize that even in our hurt, no matter who did that to you, guess what? They still have to be them, but you get to be you. And when you know that to be the divine truth of who you are, to be an expression of love, it doesn't matter so much. I love an old story about a bird who finds a piece of meat and is very excited to eat it, and then all the other birds come and just rip it out of its mouth. But what does the bird do? The bird doesn't cry about it, and moves and flies up to the sky, and he says, at least I have this peaceful and immense sky. And in a sense, it's a sad story, but to me, it's a very true story. We're going to find things that we want in life, and people and situations are going to screw it up for us sometimes. But it's up to us to be able to know and still own that truth of who we are, to live it, to be it authentically and sincerely, and to be thankful that we are in a peaceful and immense sky, that the whole world is still open to us. Ernest Holmes, he says, I don't know what he says because I brought some quotes I didn't share, but he also says, one should analyze himself, saying, do I look at myself from a standpoint of restriction? Do I see life limited to the eternal round of getting up in the morning, eating, going to work, coming home, going to bed, sleeping, getting up again, and so on? Break the bonds of apparent necessity and see life as one continuous expression of the infinite self. And as this conception gradually dawns upon the inner thought, something will happen in the outer conditions to relieve the greater demands of necessity. He goes on, free yourself forever from the thought that God may be pleased by a life of sacrifice, that the world is any better because of your misery, or that righteousness is more perfectly expressed through poverty than abundance. Know that the greater abundance of every good thing which you are bringing out into your life, the more perfectly you are satisfying the divine urge within you. Anything you can dream of is not too great to undertake if it hurts no man and brings happiness and good into your life. Our worlds will not get better around us until we better embody and practice the truth within us. I love something that the writer John Updike said. He said that dreams must come true, otherwise nature would not incite us to have them. Dreams must come true, otherwise nature would not incite them to happen. He's not saying your dreams will come true, but dreams must come true. And I apply that to these principles that we've talked about today. Faith must come true, otherwise nature would not incite us to have it. Love must come true, otherwise God would not incite us to desire it. Unity must come true, otherwise nature would not incite us with hope, with vision. I know that it's sometimes an atheist argument out there that God didn't make man, but man makes God. And although I disagree with one aspect of that, the idea that I do believe we come from a sacred wisdom and a sacred source, I actually go along with the second part of it. Because I think that God makes us, but I think we make God too. And to me, God must exist. Otherwise, nature wouldn't incite us with a desire to demonstrate what God is, what that higher truth is. So getting back to that point about homes, the truth isn't always apparent. Good isn't always the fact of the matter. Sometimes things are icky and tough, hurtful, hard, and scary. But who we are, it always has that opportunity to bring about that greater truth. So practice oneness. Bless everyone. No blame. Include yourself in the one too. Bless everyone. No blame. Include yourself in the one too. And good luck.